right, joining us today for the first time in the 2025 Hurricane season is the PA announcer at the Lenovo Center for Canes hockey, Wade Minter, joining us. Wade, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day out here in Raleigh.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Great day here in Greenville as well. And the Canes are far away from Eastern North Carolina or this side of the country as they are on their West Coast trip, the State Fair trip. And let's start there, Wade. Like, is there any talk of I don't know, this ever changing? Or is this just kind of part of the deal when you sign up to be a Hurricane and a Canes coach and a Canes fan?
It's part of the deal. So this is my 11th season doing the job, and I think in my third or fourth season, they tried it. They tried having a game at Lenovo during like the second day of the fair, third day of the fair. Tried to get at least one more game in before things got crazy, and it was a absolute nightmare. I this is one of the worst experiences of my life, just trying to get in and out of that place. It's just too much stuff going on, and yeah, I don't think we'll ever see a change unless they decide to move the state fair. So it just is. I think it is just part of what happens here. Other places have buildings, like I think Calgary goes on a long road trip when they have the big rodeo there. And, I think for the Canes, it's an opportunity for the team to get on the road, to bond early, kind of get away from the distractions of early season life. And, you knock a good chunk of your road games out right at the beginning. So it's challenging logistically, but it is what it is, I think.
I like the positive of it, which is having, home games on the back end, more home games later on, so you can look at it both ways. And heck, the way the Canes started the season didn't matter if they were playing home, road, outer space. They great start. Did lose their first game the other night to the Knights, but man, great start to the season for the Canes, Wade.
Yeah, 5-0 to start the season is great. They had a couple of rough games, but they managed to pull it out in overtime. And that's the type of start you want. They say that 2 points in October counts just the same as 2 points in April, and it does. But if you can start banking points early, then that gives you a little more cushion when you go through the lulls that every team goes through. And Canes are dealing with some injuries, and those injuries are to very key players. And they played a really good Vegas team. Like, this is one of the best teams in the league. And they played them close up until the very end, even without, two top defensemen, even without your backup goalie. And, they're going to face another tough test in Colorado tonight, a playoff team last year. They're going to then finish it up in Dallas, another playoff team. So I feel like if you come out of this road trip with more than 6 out of 12 points, you consider it a win.
Wade Minter joining us. Wade, one of the reasons for the great start is the play of Seth Jarvis. But what I like about this team is they have the established stars and key players. But I'm learning more about the youth movement. One of our interns here, Nick, is the owner of Canes Prospects on Twitter and does a great job following.
He does do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is educating me on things. But Ehlers and Akishin and kind of these younger guys that are in the mix, just a great job, I think, by the front office of building and mixing veterans with young players.
I really do feel like, at least looking at it on paper, this is a better team than last year, and last year's team made it to the conference finals. You lost a couple players, but they were generally older players. You lost Brent Burns, you lost Dmitry Orlov, but you've replaced them with folks like Alexander Nikishin, with Keandre Miller. You've got some young prospects in Chicago like Bradley Nadeau, who's lighting it up in the first few games down the AHL and had a great camp. Guys who kind of came out of nowhere. Charles Alexis Lego, who played with Skylar Brendamore at Quinnipiac and had a really good training camp. He's been called up. It's a very good balanced team. I mean, if you've got folks like Andrei Svechnikov on your third or fourth line, that's going to be a tough matchup for any team when they put their third or fourth line out there. The depth is there, and it's being tested now, especially on defense. But it's a really well-constructed team, and I think they've addressed some of the problems from last year.
Wade, it's been discussed before, I think, with you and I and with others, and Mike Maniscalco reiterated it when we talked to him right before the season started, that it's a real 90s Braves situation. I use that as a Braves fan where
I was a Braves fan in the 90s as well. I know where you're coming from.
Regular season is what it is, whatever. what are we going to do in the playoffs? And which is great that the expectation and the goal is to not just make the playoffs now, but to make a deep run in that playoffs. And Wade, is that kind of where you are with this team and this organization right now?
I am, yeah, and I went through a lot of lean years here as a
Yeah,
fan and then as an employee, and just like the Braves, they were kind of a sad sack team, and then they ripped off 10 or 12 amazing years. But just like the Braves, they got one World Series ring out of it, right? And so when you get to the point where you're a good enough, consistent enough team that you do assume the playoffs are guaranteed, and you do assume that if you get into the playoffs, it's not just going to be a one series and done. You're going to make a deep run. You're going to contend. Then I think it changes the fan base. The fan base is not just kind of appreciative of every win. The fan base is not just like going crazy because like we're going to clinch the playoffs soon, right? You've given them so many years of playoffs. You've given them so many years of deep runs and deep runs that didn't kind of get you to the top. That I think the expectations inside and outside are a lot higher. That if you make the conference finals 3 years out of 6 or 7 and you win one game, if you're a consistent playoff contender for 7 or 8 years and don't make it to the cup final, like what is that a disappointment? Like
right.
For the Canes 10 years ago, it would be amazing. For the Canes now, I think it is a disappointment.
Wade Minter joining us today on Pirate Radio Live. Wade, some Canes fans I talked to going into the season were, they had the high expectations, but were wondering about goaltending and, can Freddie hold up? And so how about that position now and in the future, near future for Carolina? What do you think about the goaltending?
Well, we've already got one injury down with Pyotr Kochekov on the shelf for a little bit with an undisclosed injury. Freddie has been playing extremely well. He was the only reason the game in Vegas was as close as it was. He was the only one who really kind of stood out in that game. But Freddie's got an injury history, and he hasn't made it through a season unscathed in quite a long time. Goaltending is the one place where your depth is questionable because the Canes picked up Caden Primo to be their number 3 guy. He got claimed on waivers when they tried to send him to the minor leagues. They claimed Brandon Bussey off of waivers from Florida, and Bussey has been very good. He's a big guy. He's athletic, kind of a career AHLer that everyone has kind of thought would be able to stick at the NHL level. But, after that, you've got some guys who haven't really proven themselves in North America. You've got Ruslan Kajayev down there in Chicago who played a couple of games. It's concerning when you've got injury-prone goalies. And, that is the one area that I think the Canes have not really made any changes in. They've stuck with this tandem of Freddie and PK for several years now. And you just kind of hope that you're gonna kind of roll the dice and get lucky that they're gonna be healthy and play to their abilities for an entire season.
If things go for the worst, Wade, do the Canes go out looking and make a move with a current NHL goaltender, or do they just kind of ride the youth movement, bring a guy up? What do you think the move would be, Wade, if they needed?
I think at this point, if you feel like you cannot get through the season with Freddie and PK for whatever reason, the team is going to make a move for an established NHL goalie. They have prospects available. They have picks. They have a ton of cap space. They kind of have the equivalent of $10 or $12 million of trade deadline cap space projected to be available. They could go get, assuming another team's willing to make a deal, they could go get a high-end goalie if they're willing to give up the assets to take them. So, I'm not Eric Tulsky, but I have to think that that's something that they're keeping in mind. They've got the ammunition. They've got the dry powder. If they choose to deploy it, are they going to deploy it on a high-end goalie? Or are they going to choose to deploy it on bringing in additional scoring threats? But the nice thing is that the team has played their cards well enough that they've got space to do more than one move to help the team as the season develops and they see what they've got.
Wade Minter joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, talking Canes hockey. It'll be Canes and Avalanche tonight. I saw a graphic, and I took a quick glance at it, and it said Nordiques.
Looks a little weird, didn't it?
Is that what they're rolling with tonight?
Yeah, so this is a throwback night on both sides. So the Canes, since Tom Dundon took over as the owner, have leaned into their Hartford Whalers heritage, right? They have a Whalers night every year. They wear the Whalers throwbacks. generally a very popular game. Other teams have a similar history. So the Colorado Avalanche were the Quebec Nordiques back in the day, and they moved in the 90s to Denver and have not really ever kind of, done anything to kind of embrace the Nordiques heritage. This year, they've announced that they're going to do some Nordiques throwbacks. They're going to wear them about 7 games or so. And what appeared to be kind of a last-minute decision, Colorado's like, yeah, we're going to wear our Nordiques jerseys against Carolina on October 23rd. And then the Canes are like, well, we're going to wear our Whalers throwbacks in that same game. So you get a chance to see and market and brand a game between two teams that people haven't seen in, a very long time.
I was thinking when you mentioned the Nordiques in the 90s, so I thought about the Cleveland Browns going to Baltimore and becoming good and winning a Super Bowl.
Of course.
Same thing happened. I remember Joe Sakic and those guys in the 90s. Like the Avalanche were the team for a few years in the 90s, but was that Quebec didn't have that success, right?
They were right on the verge. Like they were primed and ready to go with the team that would become kind of the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. I think in their first year in Denver, that team was a very good team, a very deep team in Quebec. They had a good run in their last season there. So I do think it's a very similar thing to the Browns moving to Baltimore, and the pieces were already in place. It's just bad timing for Quebec City. It was bad timing for Cleveland. That's when the move happened, and you could have seen a very, very good team for a number of years if they'd stayed a number of years.
Which the Canes Red Wings Stanley Cup? How many years after the Canes move was that, Wade? That wasn't too long, I guess.
That was the 01-02 season. So, yeah, they moved from Hartford for the 97-98 season. Okay, so that was 4 or 5 years. Yeah. It was, I think, maybe the second year in Raleigh, third year in Raleigh, something like that. But, yeah, it was fairly quick between the time the kind of, not particularly successful Whalers left Hartford, spent the 2 years in Greensboro, came to Raleigh, that the team was playing for the Stanley Cup.
We just came up with a new 30 for 30 idea, Wade, like interviewing the Quebec and Browns and Hartford fans. Did they stick with the team? Did they let them go? Because, man, that's got to be rough when your team moves and then they have success wearing different uniforms in a different city.
Yeah, I mean, looking at social media, with this game that features the uniforms of two teams that left their previous cities, who loved them, and relocated to new cities. I would think most fans of Hartford and Quebec are pretty salty and angry about it, based on what I see, and I get it.
I did, yeah. I got to be honest, Wade. Like the Whaler stuff is so cool looking and everything, but it's almost like stolen valor isn't the word, but.
That's the word a lot of people are using. So.
Okay, it does give me an odd feeling to celebrate Hartford and the Whalers when you kind of, we didn't steal the team, but they came here. So I don't know. Right. It's an odd feeling.
It is. And, I get anger and frustration from folks who grew up loving that team. Like, it makes sense. Where I don't really get it is when they're like talking so much trash to Canes fans about the fact that the team moved.
Yeah.
That's probably a little too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you would think that there would be more arrangements like the Browns had, where it's like, okay, well, we are going to move. Like, I am the owner. I own this franchise. I own, all of this stuff. I'm going to move to a new city and, in all of these cases, take on a new identity. I don't think the NHL will ever go back to Hartford. It is possible, but unlikely it'll get back to Quebec. But in the event that those did, kind of like Cleveland did, I think it would make sense for them to be able to kind of retake that branding. But in the way American sports work, those intellectual property, the money that comes in from those are the property of the franchise and the franchise owner. And, I think they make a lot of money selling Whaler stuff, and Colorado's going to make a lot of money selling Nordique stuff.
Yep. And I think you just hit the bottom line there at the end, Wade. Wade, good stuff, man. We're up against it. I'll let you run, but I enjoyed the chat as always. We'll do it again later on this hockey season. But I appreciate you joining us, man. Great to talk Canes hockey with you.
All right, thanks a bunch, Clip. Take it easy.